Whenever you hear someone even barely mention the funeral industry, you would inevitably hear the battle cry from behind you of "the funeral industry is a scam," and proceed to be surrounded by muggles with pitchforks. It is the bane of anyone who wants to have a civilized discussion about the issue. But that's what we're going to look at today. Please like and subscribe for death-related content every Friday. Now let's talk, is the funeral industry a scam? Business. Now heads up, we are focusing on the Aussie funeral industry here. The industry in some countries runs better, some definitely run worse, and some countries are so different you can't even compare them anyways. But the sentiment is going to be the same regardless. So funeral homes for the most part are businesses, meaning they are for profit. And that alone will have people waving their pitchforks around, but we'll get to that later. The main problem for the Aussie industry is its lack of transparency in its prices, meaning they don't individually list their prices. It's more of a package deal. However, it has substantially improved in that area since a law went into effect in 2019 that states that when a customer asks for it, a funeral home must hand over an itemised invoice. This isn't enough for some people though, who go off and cry to the local newspapers saying they want all prices listed on all companies' websites. Which on one hand, I get, but on the other hand, many businesses that provide services don't put all prices on their websites, your local plumber or dentist for example, because the services are personalised and customised to that individual. You're not picking off a menu. But again, we'll come back to that. The other issue in many Aussie states is that you need the help of a funeral director to fill out certain forms, such as the authority to collect or the registration of death. And obviously this incurs a fee. Various states are looking into how families could complete this themselves online without the assistance of a funeral director, but they are coming up against quite a few hurdles, as not having a third party validate these forms leaves them open to criminal intent. So that needs to be worked on, but they are getting there. So in our industry in Australia, those are our two biggest issues. Why doesn't the government pay for it? Well, that sounds a little like communism, doesn't it? And we know how evil the C word is. Actually, it's closer to socialism, but I don't think those certain individuals know the difference anyway. Ironically, these are usually the same individuals that complain about having to pay taxes, screaming the government is corrupt. Look, in some countries, the government does pay for burial and cremation. Russia, for example. But if you watch our video on Russian funeral practice, you'll know that policy isn't really working out for them. On the other hand, in Sweden, people pay their taxes and in return, the government pays for their burial, along with transport of the coffin, a premises for the funeral service, and a burial plot for 25 years. So it can be done. But the big difference here is that one country has its shit together while the other doesn't. So if you look at your country, you can say, yes, our schools, healthcare system, legal system are all running smoothly. Then perhaps start asking your government about it. But if you look around and find they're all in the shithole too, maybe your government won't have the ability to implement funerals for everyone. Just a thought. Also, those funerals would be basic in order for everyone to have the same, which would annoy a lot of people. And many people wouldn't be thrilled about the idea of having to indirectly pay for others' funerals. And we did mention in our video on body disposal methods in Australia, but the government does provide paupers funerals when absolutely necessary. Now, if you're not a fan of sarcasm or petty digs, or you prefer someone to talk to you all sweetly about all of this, you might want to check out now and I'll see you in the next video. But for the rest of you, you've been warned and let's continue. Personal responsibility. There is no doubt people like to whine when they can't get exactly what they want, but they are rarely willing to put in the work to change that situation. And dealing with the funeral industry is one of those situations. You know the funeral industry is for profit. You know that transparency is an issue. You also know that the majority of people will have to organise at least one funeral in their lifetime. I've had to organise 3. And quite frankly, if you have parents, siblings, a partner, someone in your life who's alive and sucking air, it shouldn't come as a shock to you that at some point they're going to cark it and you'll have to do something with them. So you don't want to get ripped off and they'll probably die in say 20 years, which means you have 20 years to research the best options and not get ripped off. Now I'm not saying set everything in stone, but you should have researched your basic options. And people will say, I don't have time to research. Time out. How long have you spent on your phone today? Scrolling through TikTok, Facebook, and a bunch of other nonsense that's wearing your brain to mush? We don't like to think that's only half hour a day, but it's usually hours. So saying you don't have time is a cop-out. And quite frankly, that could be said for a lot of things. Well, they shouldn't take advantage of us. Well, they do. It's a business. You know that. You research and find the best deals for your vacation. When you have to buy insurance, when you buy a home or a car, why is this any different? They shouldn't be ripping off the bereaved. It's unethical, but it's not illegal. And here's the cold truth. No one is making you use their services. But you absolutely can DIY a funeral. We have a whole video on it. That sounds like a lot of work. No shit, Sherlock. That's why you pay the funeral home for the convenience. Like you pay the tour operator to organise your holiday, a beautician to wax your eyebrows, a plumber to fix the toilet, quite frankly, a builder to build your house. But you do that because you don't have the knowledge, they do, and it's convenient for you to have them do it. I don't know what to search. And yet you manage to search your porn selection down to a very niche reference. Come on now, it's a couple of nouns, a couple of adjectives. I think you got this. They're all the same anyway, they all just want my money. Well, if you had researched instead of whining, you would know that there are plenty of affordable options out there. We got a whole video on that too. There are not-for-profit funeral homes out there. You can put dad in a hole without a funeral service. You can have direct cremation. You can DIY a funeral service and have the funeral home dispose of the body. My point is, funeral homes are not a scam. You have the same personal responsibility to research your options and find the best one for you as you do for a plumber, tour operator, wedding planner. Because the majority of deaths nowadays don't come out of nowhere. People nowadays die slowly, often very slowly. So don't tell me in the 20 minutes that it took the nurse to give your loved one a shower that you couldn't have pulled out your phone and researched your options. There are plenty of comparison websites out there. There is a funeral home out there that caters to every possible request. Lavish, bare bones, direct, involved, doesn't matter. A scam is defined as a dishonest scheme, a fraud. Now, I've organised 3 funerals in my life with 3 different funeral homes. Is it easy? No, of course not. You're organising a funeral. And even before the 2019 law came through, when asked for an itemised invoice, they still gave it to me. Sure, if you go to one of the main providers, it may be like pulling teeth, but they will still give it to you. And you can still walk away. The people who run to the newspapers crying how they've been ripped off, but also admit that they chose the first one that they found and didn't do any other research. Well, what do you expect? That's playing Russian roulette with your money. You might have been able to get away with that line of thinking in the 90s, but your argument kind of falls apart in today's world. And you don't have to be an overly well-informed individual nowadays to find the right funeral home for you, because we have the interwebs that will analyse anything from any angle for you. So just because you don't like to pay for something, and that something may be a lot, doesn't make it a scam. I know this video will piss some people off, and I'm not saying the funeral industry should be loved. It certainly has its issues, and it should be more open and user-friendly, and ideally not as expensive. But no one has or has ever had a gun to your head saying you must use it. You have access on a daily basis to all the info in the world right now in your pocket. And if you choose not to narrow down those options, which will take you less than 10 minutes if you're in a pinch, then I'm sorry, but that's on you. Now, if you were one of those people watching this and just realized you actually have a choice in all of this, please go back to see some of our other videos that we've mentioned, and they should help you out. And with that, go talk death.